Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Middle Country Public Library podcast. I'm Sal DiVincenzo, here with my fabulous colleagues, Sarah Fate.
Hello.
And Nicole Rambo.
Hello.
And we're in Orlando, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And we just finished up Podfest 2024.
We got another new studio.
We got another new studio.
It's in a house. And we live in a house.
A beach house. It's
Yeah.
a beach house. We just finished our run here at Podfest 2024. It was the 10th year. And one of the things that I learned this year was record your episode no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And do it any way that you possibly can and get it out there. So that's what we're doing. We thought it would be fun to actually record right after we finished the show and the expo, and that's what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say, I just want to ask actually, is what did you think of the show this year?
It was good.
It was a good show.
Yeah, I like the celebrity dentist.
Mm-hmm.
There was a celebrity dentist here. So a dentist who helps celebrities with their dental work and is a celebrity because they're a celebrity dentist.
Yeah. And she helped Cardi B, and Cardi B has a line in one of her songs, and it's like, got a bag and fixed my teeth. And when she said, I'm Cardi B, celebrity dentist, immediately I was like, oh, she says it in the song.
So it's the actual person.
It's crazy.
It's the actual person. They had a dental podfest, right? Was that what it was called?
Yeah,
A
like
dental
a whole
podfest.
day.
And it was like closed off to everybody else except the dentists.
Except dentists and people in the dental fields.
So they had to do that, yeah.
Yeah.
So we got to see that. We got to see some old favorites from the previous years. We speak. Lou Mangello was one of the persons that I saw. I actually spoke to him this afternoon. Just gave him a quick shout out there. Mm-hmm. And so we got to meet some really interesting people from around the country. And this year was an international Podfest, so we had the person who came the farthest was coming from Malaysia or Singapore? It was Singapore.
I know there was definitely that man from Malaysia.
Malaysia, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it was
Peter.
Peter. Yeah. So it's a really amazing show, and when we do the intro to podcasting programs at the library, we like to mention that if you do have the opportunity to come to a show like this, it is actually a great opportunity to learn a lot. And we were talking about other podcast expos, other conferences about podcasting.
It depends on what you want to get out of the expo.
Yes.
They all kind of have different goals and different audiences.
Yeah.
So this one is definitely good for new people and new creators.
Exactly.
And everyone, I will say, if you are considering going, everyone is incredibly friendly.
It's super friendly. It's like family.
Incredibly friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
creepily friendly.
point where you're like, but at every time I sat down, the person next to me was like, "Hi, I'm from." And I was like, "Okay," but everyone's super sweet. They'll record a podcast with you. It's very
absolutely
nice.
Yes. There's a lot of connections.
Yeah.
You know, here's my LinkedIn page. Here's my this. Connect with me. We all wear these badges that have QR codes on them, so people are like scanning your QR code. So it really is an interesting experience. And it was a lot of fun this year, and we learned a lot of things, and we're going to bring it back to you. And we thought that for this episode, we'd talk about podcasting and podcasts and some of the things that we learned and some of the things that maybe you weren't aware of. So I want to start off right away saying that if you are interested in starting your own podcast, we have a podcast studio. Excuse me, we have a media studio. I'm sorry, Nicole.
It's all right.
We have a media studio,
podcast studio
in the innovation space at the library. Did you know that? You know that. You know that. There's an innovation space. And in the innovation space, we have this wonderful podcast studio, which you can reserve. Every patron, whether you're a Middle Country Public Library patron, or perhaps you listen to us and you're not a patron because, I don't know, you like to hear us talk and watch us on YouTube, you can reserve the studio twice a month for 3 hours at a time.
Plenty of time.
Which is plenty of time to record your own podcast.
Even though Sarah did go to a presentation where they do an hour-and-a-half podcast every day, right?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, who was that?
That was he did a podcast on horses and ranches.
Oh, this was the guy that was shoveling stuff.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Another word for stuff, but yes.
Yeah.
That was, okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Just crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. So,
It's
but
a
6
lot.
hours I think is enough for you to record multiple episodes and even edit multiple episodes. So we're going to put in the show notes for this week's episode, we're going to put the link to where you can actually reserve your studio time here at the library at Middle Country. And speaking of the library in Middle Country, I had the opportunity this year to speak. I spoke. Let's mention that, right? Because my heart rate went up so high. It was like 120 beats per minute.
But you did good. You
I
did
did
good.
excellent. We had people come up to us after
And
when Sal wasn't there. Like it was just Sarah and I, and they're like, "Oh, you spoke."
When Sal was in the bathroom throwing up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, it was. I speak all the time. I mean, I do this. I speak to business owners at the Miller Business Center for some reason. You know what I think it was? So the thing I did was called Pecha Kucha, which I believe is a Japanese word, and it has to do with saying something concise and quick within like a 5-minute period. So I had 20 slides, PowerPoint slides, and each slide had 15 seconds. And it would show the slide, and I would have to talk for 5 minutes nonstop. And they give you like 15, 20 seconds in between each of these because there was like 20 of us. And I'll put a picture up if you're watching on YouTube so you could see what this group looked like. A varying degrees of, I guess, experience. So some podcasters had been doing this for a long time. There were people there who had just started podcasting and they wanted to tell their story. We told our story, and I gotta say, as nervous as I was, my chest was puffed with pride because I thought about it afterwards and people were clapping at the fact that we did build a podcast studio for patrons to use for free. That got a big round of applause.
And that was free, and everything. They really appreciated that.
So that was a good experience for me. I don't know if I'd ever do a Pecha Kucha again because I think the timing was the thing that really made me nervous. But but it was a lot of fun, and it was a great experience, and I was honored to represent our wonderful patrons at Middle Country and our library and our amazing administration that allows us to do stuff like this. So we do appreciate you very much. So that being said, let's talk about podcasting. A lot of things that we heard about this week was if you have an idea for a podcast, you should just jump in and do it, right? So, so Sarah, what was the one thing that you took away from this year's show? Well, you did a lot. I mean, we did get to see a lot of different things, so it's kind of difficult to pick one thing out. But what was the thing that kind of like, stood out to you that you were like, wow, I didn't really think about it that way?
You put me on the spot here.
I'm sorry. Well, that's what we do here on the podcast.
Yeah, no, I mean, because a lot of the stuff was like, if you want to start one, just do it.
Okay, that's...
You don't have to be perfect. Just do it.
There you go. That's it. Yeah. That's the thing. If you want to start,
but it wasn't for me.
Just do it. Yeah, I know, but it was. Yeah. But that stood out to you, and a lot of people, a lot of presentations, that was like ad nauseum. They kept saying it over and over again.
Yeah.
If you have an idea for a podcast, you should do it. So what about you, Nicole? What was the thing that stood out for you? Make sure you get the microphone up there.
There's a lot of talk of like AI, even just going to the exhibits in the vendor hall. It was interesting how these little, or I don't know if they're little, but a lot of them did seem like they were newer. But it's because podcasting is newer, especially using AI, and podcasting is newer. So there's a couple of like new businesses using AI to do certain things, and I thought it was like things that we've seen in social media. Like I see this happen all the time on TikTok, or I see this, and I didn't realize they were using AI to do these things. And I was like, oh, okay. So
I did one. While we were here,
right? Yeah, and so I was like, oh, okay. So it's not that hard. It's a lot easier than you think it is, which is nice to find out. We're like, okay, we can definitely use this. It's in the library. It's quick. It won't take up too much of our time and stuff like that. So it was cool. I was like, oh, this is how they do that. Yeah,
and that just brings me to the thing that popped out for me was this. I went to a lot of technology programs because technology moves very quickly, especially in this field and in the media field and podcasting. And I want to make sure that we have the best things here at the library. And the AI came up, and this one service was a service that actually makes clips. These shorts are big right now on YouTube. And it's a great way to promote your show in tiny little pieces, so 1 minute pieces. So I took our last episode that we did with Jim Ward, our Challenger episode. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it on the feed here. But I took that. I told the AI to read about a 10-15 minute span of the whole episode, and 20 minutes later I get an email with these clips with the titles, with the subtitles built in. Little icons came up. It switches our cameras around, and it was really remarkable.
Yeah, you've seen it. Like what we're talking about, you've seen the end result. If you're on any kind of social media, you've definitely seen it. So it was fun to have it happen for us and see how like easy it was. Yeah. And there's many companies that do this, so we're not going to like promote one right now.
No, we can't.
And like even at the vendor hall, there was plenty of different tables that were doing this. So it was very cool.
Yeah, it was very neat. Yeah. So, and you'll probably see before you see this episode, you will probably see that little clip that I made for the Challenger disaster episode. You'll probably see it posted on this channel. So for me, that was the fact that there was this AI thing. And I will say this, what a lot of people were saying about AI is don't use it as your main form of content. Use it as a tool, as a resource, because AI is not perfect yet. And it could get you into a little bit of trouble. Yeah. So, it's definitely, that was a standout thing for me. And also, as I mentioned before, the fact that a lot of podcasters were saying, start ugly, just do it. Use whatever equipment you have. Use your cell phone. Use your iPhone camera, your Android camera. Just get it out there and do it. It doesn't have to sound perfect. In fact, I just came for the last thing that I just did was Universal. Discover Universal podcast. And it was funny because their equipment, because it's NBC, so they had all this equipment and all the fancy stuff. They have a studio at the park and whatnot. But even though they had that, the presentation was podcasting for small businesses and how to get your small business a podcast. And they said themselves, start just simple, just do it, just get it. You have an idea, you want to get it out there, just do it, and it'll come out regardless. And even before that, the program that I did before that, I'm sorry, I'm jabbering because I'm very excited. The program I did before that, was an audio engineer. And he said, as an audio engineer, I want my audio to be perfect. As a podcaster, I don't. Because when people listen to podcasts, they want to hear like a natural situation. They want to hear, if you're outside, they want to hear birds in the background. They want to hear cars and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Sarah and I got to sit in a Tesla and experience Dolby Atmos.
Oh, it was in a Tesla?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
I couldn't open the door. I was staying in the back. I couldn't figure out how to open the door for about a good 2 minutes. I finally figured out how to open the door, sat in the back, and it was quite the experience. Like the sound comes from like all over and stuff.
And it doesn't require more speakers. It's just the technology.
I was very confused. I didn't know. I kept asking the poor man so many questions, and he is like, he was Scottish, so that was the reason why I was asking him so many questions. Really, I don't really care, but it was fun.
Oh, so you were both in the Tesla while this was happening?
And there was another person with us. So.
Oh, okay, to show you how to do it. Okay, that's very cool. That's the other big technology that everybody's talking about. So it's AI and it's Dolby Atmos spatial audio.
Yes.
They're actually trying to encourage podcasters to record in spatial audio.
Yeah, because we listened to, what was the one that we listened to that we really liked?
Well, there was a nature podcast. And he was talking about like the Serengeti, and then there was like nighttime at the Serengeti, so there was birds and animal walking.
And you felt like they were like walking next to you.
And then there was a Charles Dickens one where it was sort of like a dramatic reenactment, and that was good.
Yeah.
And then there was a future.
Yeah, but the guy only played it because the actors are Scottish.
Yeah.
And he's like, I like the way they talk, sound like me.
Yeah, so those are the 3 examples that he played, and it was really cool.
Yeah. And if you're into music, you probably have already experienced this. I know my husband who does music, he's like, oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big deal. So we got to see that. So there's a lot of great things that are coming down the road here for podcasters, and I just had a meeting today with Hindenburg, the company that we use in the studio, and they're going to do a program for us. So hopefully in the fall we'll have someone from Hindenburg actually do a program. I think it's going to be remote though, because I don't think logistically, they're a European company. Right. So, but they're going to do a remote program for us, for our patrons, to learn the software that we have in the studio and then be able to record your own podcast. So it's all exciting stuff, and we're very happy that we were able to come down and learn this stuff and bring it back to you. Before we wrap this episode up, I do want to ask my colleagues here. Yeah. What podcasts are you listening to right now? We haven't done that in a while. So
I have my notes. Hold on. I have to get my notes out. Okay.
Do you know?
Well, I listen to the Handsome Pod.
The Handsome Pod.
The Handsome Pod.
Okay.
It comes out on Tuesdays, and it has Tig Notaro, they're all three female comedians, Tig Notaro, Fortune Feimster, and Mae Martin. So what happens is they get someone else who is usually famous to ask them a question, and then they answer it, and then the person who asks it will give their answer, and it's probably usually between like 50 to an hour long, but it's very funny. It makes me chuckle.
Cool.
It's very humorous. Obviously, they're three comedians, and they also broadcast on YouTube.
All right.
So I like that one. And then there's another one that I like that's called Nocturnal Transmissions, and it's a horror story.
Why not?
Podcast. And so they do original. I think I talked about this before. They do original, and then they do older horror stories.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, that's and they have different guest narrators, I guess you can call it. So
nice.
that's fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then, but yesterday, like as soon as we got in the car, Sarah was like, "Oh, this would be great for horror podcasts, right? Like that Dolby surround,
Super creepy.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. And Nicole, what are you listening to right now?
All right. So we know I listen to Andrew Huberman.
We do. We mentioned it many times before.
He's my guy, and I'll mention it again. Book Ryan and Andrew Huberman. Reach out if you want to collaborate. I also like How I Built This with Guy Raz. I've probably talked about that before too.
Cool.
It's an NPR podcast, and he interviews like big business CEOs and stuff. The Meet Cute podcast. So there is a romance bookstore in San Diego. It's called Meet Cute. And she has her own podcast, so she interviews romance authors. So obviously, I'm a fan of that.
Yes.
And then I haven't listened to the podcast, but I've watched so many of her TikTok clips from her podcast. But Mel Robbins, she's like a motivational speaker.
Okay.
And I usually like her clips on TikTok a lot. So like I'm sure it's literally clips from her podcast. So I like her podcast as well. So one day I'll listen to it.
Nice.
But she has on people like doctors and like science fact people, but it's still like a motivational kind of podcast of like self-confidence and all different things. So
That's nice.
Cool.
yeah, so she's getting really popular, kind of like a female Tony Robbins almost.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I listen to the Middle Country Public. No, I'm just kidding. I listen to.
I do watch this.
Yes, I do. We watch it. I listen to this. But you know what I've been listening to a lot lately, and Nicole and Sarah will appreciate this, seeing as that we're flying back tomorrow. Is Flight Radar 24's AV Talk podcast, which the last couple of weeks has been about the Boeing 737-9 MAX, which we are not flying on to get back to New York.
Well, I wouldn't be, even if you were. I would walk back.
You should have seen these two on the flight down. Anyway, so it's very interesting because for people who are not aware about how things work with airlines and with airplanes and whatnot, you might want to take a listen because it maybe put your mind to ease a little bit. Probably not.
Well, who produces it?
Flight Radar 24, which is the
Does that have connections to Boeing?
They don't.
Nope, just investigative journalism.
I swear. They are investigative journalism, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what they're doing is they're
because that's what happens. Listen to this podcast, and it will dispel all these things, and you find out that they're getting paid by the people.
No. They're not getting paid by the people.
You're like, no, it's so safe.
I swear this podcast is unbiased. Flight Radar 24 is a fantastic app that you can put on your phone. They have a free version of it and a paid version. I get the paid version because I like the extra bells and whistles. Not expensive, it's like $30 a year. Anyway, it lets you track flights. And so if you see an airplane above you, you can use your cell phone. It actually has virtual augmented reality, so you can show yourself, point your cell phone at the airplane, and it'll tell you where the airplane's going, what the airline is, where it's coming from, and all that good stuff.
That doesn't sound safe.
It is safe.
What?
Yes, it's a live.
Safety.
It's a live thing.
Wait, what?
Yes.
You just point your phone at an airplane.
Any airplane.
Any airplane
In the sky.
In the sky. And
In the sky.
And it'll tell you what it is and where it's going.
How?
Because planes nowadays have to transmit certain things. It's called ADS-B, and that transmission actually is making it flight safer.
So is that how that kid is able to track like Elon
Musk? Absolutely. There you go. That's what it is.
Okay,
yes.
I approve of that.
So that is...
I get it now.
So that's my... I will say, I haven't had time recently to start any new podcasts, but the one podcast that I do follow on a regular basis is that.
Yeah.
It's AV Talk by Flight Radar 24. We'll put that all in the show notes. And that's it. So we just wanted to come to you really quick to kind of give you an update on what's happening. Next week we'll be back in the studio. But if you want to listen to older episodes or read our show notes, you can visit our website, mcplpodcast.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button, hit subscribe. Our subscribers are going up.
Hey!
I'm noticing this.
Welcome
to the channel. I think we're getting some good engagement, which is another thing we learned about today.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, yes, hit that like button. And if you liked what you heard here or saw here, then share it with a friend, and perhaps they'll get something out of it too. They don't have to be a patron either. So if you have a friend who's in Sachem or in Longwood or another library, Nassau, Suffolk County, California, definitely send it to them. And
Malaysia,
and send it to them, and we'll be happy to have them as listeners and as subscribers. So thank you so much for watching and listening. For Sarah Fade and Nicole Rambo, I'm Sal DiVincenzo. See you on the next show.